Thank you, and it's great to be here again. I was here last night, and here I am again. A lot of people keep saying, don't they, I'm sure you've all heard it, that the environmental movement is too white, it's too middle class. What do you think? I think that's utter rubbish. I think if we look at the people who've been fighting for generations and generations against ecocide globally, we'll understand that they are not that demographic. Would you agree? Generally, they happen to be indigenous and First Nation people. I also want to say today something that I usually say, and that is that we have no chance, as far as I believe, to mitigate this environmental and climate emergency if we do not act with the same intent towards the global poverty and the global inequality emergency. The global racism pandemic that has taken hold still. Because guess what? All these things that are manifesting, whether it's the weather, all these different climate episodes, or even Black Lives Matter, it is because history and the legacy of history is on our doorstep now. It's caught up with us. And guess what? None of us are going to escape. Even me, as a woman of Scottish, Canadian and African, Jamaican and a few other things, heritage, even me, my heritage is implicated in this history. And I realized this quite starkly a couple of weeks back. I'm also an artist, and I am part of a collective called the Association of Unknown Shores. And it's a collective of women, there are 4 of us, and we've come together between Bristol, Plymouth and Canada. And our person we're working with in Canada is from the indigenous communities. And part of this project is about decolonization. It's also about understanding and reconciliation. And we got together and we had a performance recently online for a Ghanaian festival called Chale Wote, an international festival, street arts that attracts thousands of people, but this year was online. Whilst we were preparing for that, my role was to choreograph. We have discussions. People cast different items, such as a Nawaho horn, because we're looking back and we're understanding Bristol's hand in a lot of destruction and harm to humanity over there in Canada. Whilst we were preparing this, my job was to choreograph based on our discussions. And our collaborator over there in Canada, Janet, she said, you know what? I'm just going to play the drum. I'm not very coordinated, and I'll leave the dance to you 3. Okay, all right, Janet, your drumming is nice. We need a beat to go with it. That's fine. It later emerged that actually, when she spoke to a friend, what it was my British accent. My British voice was still an act of violence. And for her to take on my words in my accent through her body, she couldn't do it. She couldn't do it because the harm is that deep. There's so much more that needs to be done to heal from this. And I found that an interesting thought, that me, even as a woman of colour, I don't get an automatic pass in places. And I'm reminded also daily that there's so much that I've lost from my culture. I do not have my traditional practice. I do not have my indigenous languages. Every week, every day, every year is an act of learning, decolonizing and regaining all that's been lost to all of us. And it's a sad day, isn't it, that we see Chadwick Boseman passed away. Very sad. And it's sad because he, through his work as Black Panther, he actually gave so many people of African descent a sense of pride in their African heritage, a sense of identity, which for many people was stolen and lost. But we're still here, and much like the indigenous people worldwide, we're still fighting for justice. We're still fighting for justice, and now in 2020, we're asking everyone to stand with us. Also, as an activist, despite being a woman of colour, I have to humble myself. I have to look actively and seek guidance where it's needed, because there are so many more people who know better than me, who know better than all of us, who know better than the leaders of XR. And these are the people who've been earth protectors for generations and generations, calling it out, often on their own. So let's be real. I actually wish to thank, and I don't wish to patronize, but I wish to thank all the white middle-class people, if you have that label. Thank you for using your privilege and doing what you can to find a way to get in the way and to disrupt this toxic legacy that we've inherited. But it isn't enough, and we must all now unite as history does catch up with us. Did you know that Columbus was rumoured to have passed through Bristol? Does it surprise you? Doesn't really surprise me. But guess what? First Nation people describe his interference as the First World War. And I think I agree with that. I agree that that was the First World War. And guess what? It's a war that hasn't ended, and it's a war that is yet to be won. But I believe we can win that war. We can, we will, we must. We must win this racist war. We must win this earth-ending war. But for us to really win that war, we must listen to and get behind the First Nation people. They know better than us. We have to. That is the only way it's going to work. We all must humble ourselves and still do the action that is required. We may need to seek guidance, counsel, and forgiveness from them. Because, as it was in the beginning, so shall it be in the end. If you can't hear, you must feel. I've probably gone over my 8 minutes, but they were running late, so I'm going to give you a poem anyway. And this poem is called Discarded. Luckily, through lockdown, friends of St. Paul's Library, where I live in St. Paul's, they were still able to do workshops online. And under the tutorage of Akula Agbami, who's an amazing writer and artist, I attended her sessions and I came out with a poem inspired by pictures and other influences. And it's called Discarded. Forever the rug will be in recollection, a piece of woolen dermis, jettisoned. Why is the dusk so thick with forgetting, with Sirius in plain pageantry? The nocturnal sky nude to thine eye, a winter's tale astray. Horizon scorned and scorched red with a shepherd's threat. Who were you? Meditate on the outside of the earth. My grandmother drank Irish moss, remnants from the ocean's bed, hearsay and old wives' tales. Now, all we've got in all we've lost, the rug curls. This fraternity that transmits denotation under maternity is interrupted like a rinse in the river at moonlight. Concealed, covert, requisite. Take the pail and drink in partnership at this juncture, at this vista. Hues allied in coalition. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a brilliant assembly now, and I hope to take part. Thank you.